Children as young as 6 years old were injured during the incident, with 11 being treated at the city's Children's Mercy Hospital.
The police were, of course, there, present. Yeah, they have snipers in certain places. They've got to secure the area.
We had over 800 officers there, staffed, situated all around Union Station today.
One person was killed in a shooting near the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl victory parade this afternoon.
President Joe Biden has delivered his response to the shooting during Kansas City's Super Bowl celebrations, which has left one person dead.
Calling for arm control. In separate statements made on Wednesday evening, hours after a slaying that resulted in the demise of a person following the Super Bowl victory parade in Kansas City, Missouri, President Biden and Vice President Harris called on Congress to enact more regulations on firearms in the market. Biden released a statement in which he particularly recommended that lawmakers ban attack rifles in addition to other arm control regulations. He also requested that people all throughout the country join him in his position. It is time to take action. That is the position I am in, and I need the nation to support me in this endeavor, to ensure that your voice is heard in Congress so that we can finally take action to prohibit attack weapons, to restrict high-capacity magazines, to tighten background checks, and to prevent firearms from falling into the hands of individuals who have no business possessing them or handling them, Biden added. The President of the United States stated that the slaying that occurred at the Chiefs' victory party cuts deep in the American soul, and he asserted that, "We know what we have to do, we just need the courage to do it."
And shame the country into reforming its laws on gun control. 3 people have been arrested.
In a larger event, there would have been more federal eyes on this event anyway.
Children as young as 6 years old were injured during the incident, with 11 being treated at the city's Children's Mercy Hospital.
Continuing to meddle in city business, they've done that on a whole host, not just public safety, but this has been designed to withstand that.
You have 3 persons detained and under investigation for today's incident.
A few slayings that took place elsewhere in the country on Wednesday were mentioned by President Joe Biden as he addressed the scourge of armed crime. He stated that Americans had the right to go to school, church, walk on the street, and attend Super Bowl celebrations without the fear of being shot and slayed. Every single day, families and communities are being torn apart by the scourge of armed crime. There are some that are featured in the media. It does not in many cases. To put it simply, none of it is appropriate. He stated that it is necessary for us to determine who we are as a nation. He prayed for those who have been affected by the tragedy and urged people of the U.S. to find the resolve to end this senseless epidemic. Harris told reporters on the tarmac that Wednesday was meant to be a day of celebration in Kansas City, but instead it turned out to be another day where Americans have experienced senseless armed crime. This was before Harris left for Munich, Germany. The reality of it is, a lot of this can be prevented if members of legislatures, including the U.S. Congress, just had the courage to act on reasonable armed safety laws, said Representative Harris. In addition, I believe that it is of the utmost need for everyone to comprehend that things do not have to be in this kind of state. The situation does not have to be like this. Before boarding Air Force Two, he also extended her prayers to the families of those who had been slayed as well as to the individuals in the town. One woman was slayed and 22 people were injured after gunshots were heard during the Chiefs' victory parade in Kansas City at approximately 2 o'clock in the afternoon local time. The event was held near the Union Station parking garage. The individual has been recognized as Lisa Lopez Galvin, a mother of 2 who also works as a radio DJ in the area. In addition, 11 children were injured during the incident, but as of Wednesday night, it was anticipated that they would eventually recover. 9 of them were shot, and 2 of them had injuries that were not traumatic. Chief Stacey Graves of the Kansas City Authorities Department stated on Wednesday evening that during the incident, 3 individuals were taken into custody and at least 1 weapon was discovered by the authorities.
I don't have the exact on the weapons, but we have recovered firearms. I don't have a number for you or a caliber.
The police were, of course, there, present. Yeah, they have snipers in certain places. They've got to secure the area.
I mean, what you saw happen was why people talk about guns a lot.
Couldn't help get our kids, and that killed me. I had to sit there and just wonder.
President Joe Biden has delivered his response to the shooting during Kansas City's Super Bowl celebrations, which has left 1 person dead.
Missouri GOP leaders' reaction. New calls for tougher arm legislation in Missouri have been sparked by the mass slaying that occurred at Kansas City's celebration of the Chiefs' Super Bowl parade on Wednesday. However, previous debates in favor of and against such measures also came up again, with Republican leaders who run the legislature and all statewide offices indicating that new legislation is not required. At a press conference on Thursday, House Speaker Dean Plocher, a Republican from Des Perez, stated that laws alone cannot address the issue of armed crime. We'll work on the events that are playing out in Kansas City, but I think there is currently an ordinance in place there that should have stopped what happened. Plocher, a Republican candidate for lieutenant governor, told reporters on Thursday that laws by themselves cannot fix every issue. Kansas City rules prohibit both the discharge of arms within the city limits and the transfer of firearms and ammunition to minors without the consent of the minor's parent or guardian. Following Plocher's news conference on Thursday, Kansas City Police Chief Stacey Graves announced that multiple firearms had been found and that 2 minors were among those taken into custody following the incident.
To determine if one of the 3 are the one that was in that video where fans assisted police.
Well, following yesterday's tragic events in Kansas City, President Biden is renewing calls for stricter gun control.
15 more with life-threatening injuries.
President Biden says the tragedy cuts deep in the American soul.
People who have been here all day, so of course you can imagine the kind of panic that begins when you hear gunfire.
We had over 800 officers there, staffed, situated all around Union Station today.
Plocher was questioned about a bill that would have made it unlawful for minors to carry firearms in public, but was defeated by House Republicans last year. Plocher abruptly halted the press conference without committing to further arm restrictions in the face of persistent questions on firearms. We are keeping an eye on that investigation as it progresses, Plocher stated. It goes without saying that we're sad for those who lost their lives. As things develop, we'll be able to remark more. The Speaker also praised a crime bill that last week received first-round approval in the House. It contains a much-discussed ban on celebratory gunfire and stiffer penalties for possessing an illegal firearm. Plocher stated, "We've addressed crime in the House. In Kansas City to celebrate the Chiefs' triumph were a number of public figures, including Governor Mike Parson, Senate Majority Leader Cindy O'Loughlin, and Senate Minority Leader John Rizzo. I saw people rushing, but I didn't know why. According to O'Loughlin on Facebook, I knew there was a problem somewhere nearby when I saw the police and other people in tactical outfits with weapons drawn." After thanking first responders on social media, Rizzo demanded stricter arm control legislation. He claimed that first responders made it possible for him and numerous others to escape. "This isn't how we should have to live," Rizzo posted on social media. "We urgently need sensible arm safety legislation. It is about the kind of world we want for our children, not politics." Almost all arm control measures backed by Democrats were rejected by the Republican-controlled legislature during the previous year's session, including attempts to prevent teens from purchasing semi-automatic weapons and risk protection orders that would have taken arms away from dangerous people. After a slaying at a downtown St. Louis office building this summer left 1 teen slayed and 10 others injured, 3 of the city's most powerful Democrats pushed Parson to call a special session to address the issue of armed crime in the community. At the time, Aldermanic President Megan Green advised Parson to push legislators to pass laws requiring background checks, arm licenses, and a red flag statute that would provide police the authority to deal with arm ownership by those suffering from mental illness. However, Parson never convened a special meeting. Parson stated that a bunch of criminals, thugs, were to blame for the state's arm regulations in an interview that aired on KCMO, a talk radio station in Kansas City, on Thursday. He made no mention of the legislation themselves. Democrats have introduced a number of arm-related bills this year, including ones that would outlaw the possession of firearms by people convicted of domestic abuse.
Police, meanwhile, have confirmed that 3 suspects are now in custody following the incident.
About the shooting. I don't have it all. I'll have it later tonight.
That's what happens with guns. I won't get in a big debate right now. I think we're still doing an investigation.
1 person was killed in a shooting near the Kansas City Chiefs' Super Bowl victory parade this afternoon.
Also, this bill was written with constitutionality in mind, so I definitely had a good feeling.
It's an issue that the president certainly talks about. It's an issue he knows that is very important to his base.
Right now, Missouri gun law now considered unconstitutional.
Classify the possession of high-capacity magazines as a crime and establish a extreme risk protection order that would permit law enforcement to seize firearms under specific circumstances. In order to relax Missouri's arm rules, the GOP-controlled legislature passed a permit-free carry bill in 2016 and ruled that some federal arm laws were unconstitutional in 2021. The U.S. Supreme Court has declined to permit the law to go into force, and federal courts have halted it. Senator Bill Eigel, a Republican from Weldon Springs who is seeking governor, stated that liberal arm grabbers were already exploiting the Kansas City tragedy to advance a radical arm control agenda, signaling that any arm restrictions would encounter strong resistance. Not in Missouri, declared Eigel. The terrible criminals who opened fire on the crowd instantly could have been stopped by one good individual with an arm. People do not die from arms. People are slayed by criminals and thugs. Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft, who opposed Eigel in the GOP primary, claimed that new legislation wouldn't address the issue. In a statement to the Post-Dispatch, Ashcroft stated, "Restricting the right of law-abiding citizens to protect themselves while creating more laws that criminals ignore is not the answer. If we hope to reverse the trend of violent crime, we must uphold the existing legal framework." Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe, a third Republican contender, stated in a statement on Friday that the solution isn't and never will be more laws restricting constitutional rights for law-abiding Missourians. Criminals disobey the law regardless of their age. Democratic candidate for governor, House Minority Leader Crystal Quaid, has advocated for stricter arm regulations. She expressed her sorrow for the victims of the slaying. The Springfield Democrat stated, "I want to thank law enforcement and first responders for acting quickly and professionally while we wait for more information." That's all for this video, folks. See you next time.